why we're doing this, why Tim agreed, and what value it offers you. We have two technologies that probably haven't seen much about each other over the years. Drupal is a pretty well-established content management system, open source. And of course, iOS has been around for not quite as long. But both of them have a lot of common interests. And so what we're going to talk about is the first open source generic sample application that allows iOS developers to natively talk to the latest version of Drupal, which actually just was release candidate a week ago. And I can tell you it's been an interesting ride over the last several months in developing this app. So we'll start out with introductions. I'm Michael Smith. We're going to be having one of our speakers, Vivek Penya, is actually in India. He was one of the developers of this application, and he's going to give the demo of it. And then later on, we're going to be talking about how you as an iOS developer might want to use Drupal for a back-end solution. So if you're developing something on the front end and you need to, say, pull users and content together, and you don't find App Engine or Azure or AWS to cover it, you might want to use Drupal as a way to provide the necessary back-end services. And Chinggis is going to talk briefly about the presentation he's giving next month on putting Drupal in a Docker container. He has a company that allows you to move that container just about anywhere you want with a click of the button. So that's the net of it. I'll get started here in a couple of minutes. If there's anybody who has anything that they'd like to announce, job opening, maybe they're looking for a job, their own group, they're announcing a meeting or something, feel free to come up now and do that. Oh, okay. All right, well, let me, yes, come on up, please. I'll share my over-damped mic with you.
Okay.
Be careful, it's dangerous.
Hi, everyone. I'm Linda from Talent Space. We are a tech consulting firm. We're actually here to network and to meet some individuals who may be looking for opportunities within the industry using the Drupal experience they have. So myself, Linda, this is Urmila.
Nice to meet you. I guess what we'll do is if anyone in this room is looking for any types of roles within Drupal or even iOS development, if you don't mind, we'll leave our business cards here and they can get them from you and get in touch with us via LinkedIn or our emails, and we'd be happy to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Sorry about that. Okay, so let me I can't read that from the side. We'll start this up if I can figure out.
Yeah, that's the big one.
There we go. So this is the agenda. And I'll begin by giving you an overview of why all this is relevant. And then we'll get a demo. You'll actually see it work. So this all started about 6 months ago, and I was at DrupalCon in Los Angeles. And DrupalCon's a meeting conference that occurs in various places across the globe, and it's Drupal developers. There are about 1 million of them worldwide. And so Drupal 8 is a big paradigm shift for the operating system, just like some of the versions of iOS have been big changes. So what made this relevant to the mobile developer is that Drupal now has moved into the world of web services in a big way. And what you find now is you have the capability of talking to Drupal from a mobile device purely through HTTP requests, so basic web services, RESTful interfaces, we call it. Thank you. And so, for those of you who don't know what Drupal is, beyond maybe the name, Drupal's a lot like WordPress in the sense that it's very popular. It's the second most widely used open source CMS. And there are a lot of companies and government agencies that use this, not necessarily always for their front door kind of website, but they use it for a lot of ancillary services. Yahoo has it for some developer websites, eBay, and all of these organizations use it, some of which you'll obviously recognize because I tried to pick just the Bay Area ones. But there are other ones such as the White House, Washington Post, and that meant to me that it scaled. It scales very well. And the people who developed the back end for this were very serious about getting the job done. So it's not really a CMS actually, it's more of a CMS framework. And it gives you the ability to put together a back end that allows you to do a lot of good work that you don't have to code. I like that part. The most interesting part of all this is how much work will I actually have to put into it that's largely tangential to what I'm trying to get done on the mobile side. So Drupal now means really mobile, where before they would use things like responsive design, which is a way of, kind of taking an HTML page and rearranging it to cram it into a smaller window. But Drupal 8 has a lot of features to facilitate that. And I don't know how many of you have done web development from sort of the ground up, but there are tools such as SAS and Twig, Compass, and Symphony that allows you to programmatically now design the front end, write procedural CSS, and make it extremely dynamic. But as many of you know who've tried to do web in a can, so to speak, and put WebKit or something into an app and try to make it look natural, there are a lot of problems doing that. And so Drupal, which once was mostly a vertically integrated server-based UI, where the entire user experience was driven by the servers, now decided to go in the opposite direction. So a lot of people use the term for what it's become as headless Drupal. And I don't really like that, frankly. The real brains to Drupal is in the back end. And if you take a look at what it can do for you in terms of back-end services, file systems, databases, security, user administration, you find that it's more like faceless Drupal when you take the UI off of it. And that's not a bad thing, because what it gives you the ability to do is to build apps and have users that now can communicate with each other without going to necessarily build your own. You could use Couchbase or Parse or App Engine, and you could build all this yourself. But I don't know, I've not really met very many iOS developers that want to go into the back end and do all that work, especially going into the back end and actually doing all the development and the testing and the ongoing support. So Drupal offers you the ability to put your content wherever you want it. You want to host it yourself, you want to put it in a Docker container and put it anywhere you can get services. You want to host it on GoDaddy. We've got one site that will show it's actually a GoDaddy site. And or you could go to the specialty Drupal hosting such as Pantheon or Acquia. Acquia is started by the guy who invented Drupal. So this is real benefit I saw in this full-featured backend that now can communicate freely with the app. And it's been able to do that for a long time. However, the difference now is it's in core, where before you had to slap together something, and a lot of people were actually good enough, some of you out there might have actually done this yourselves on the Drupal side. You can actually make Drupal 7, which is the older version, work in this way, but it was extremely tedious because you dealt with a lot of third-party modules that may or may not have serviced the need. Dependency management was a bit of a nightmare because even if you had the tools, you still had to review every change that every module put out. Where now a lot of this is in core, and so you can get a lot of what you really need on the back end without actually having to do this juggling of dependency management. So how this works is Drupal is very good at managing things that require usually a lot of testing, a lot of nervousness. Things like users and content, and most importantly, the authentication services that you need in order to make sure that everybody feels safe about it. And Drupal's used for a wide number of retail commerce applications, so they are used to having this kind of security inside the system. And you get a lot of choices as to what kinds you want if you have a particular application-specific need. And so you basically have this great abstraction layer now, where instead of having to worry about, on the back end, worrying about, well, what's this thing going to look like? Writing a spec on taste in terms of what user interface looks good is problematic for somebody who's used to doing back-end work. And I've met a lot of Drupal developers who are extremely good at that. I really admire their technical abilities to drive the whole process. But once I get to talking about the user experience, it's like they kind of glaze over. It's like, I don't want to deal with that because it's so vague and it's so difficult to really nail down. But now there's a way to bifurcate that, where on the back end, you're really dealing with very concrete JSON objects that can be written into a spec and unit tested. It's very clean. Or on the front end, and this is where all the iOS developers, I think, will agree with me, the iOS application is all about the user experience. And while there are ways like core data to deal with the content, they're not particularly appealing. So you have two groups here. It's like the yin and yang of client-server development. And this paradigm actually creates a great way to put the two together and allow them to work very constructively. Because, as you know, a JSON object is not a matter of taste or art or personal preference. It is a discrete data object which can either be wrong or right. And you can have a lot of processing going on the back end and create something very succinct, or you can pass a lot of data through, like an object such as an image or a video. So this clean abstraction layer, I believe, what makes this appealing. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a template app, and that's what we've done. We've created an app that uses Drupal on the back end. It uses native iOS on the front end, and allows people to figure out whether they want to do this for themselves. So for the iOS developer, it's pretty straightforward. Dependency management, we use CocoaPods, and then like many network apps, we use AF networking, which is sort of an abstraction of NSURL session, NSURL connection. But we take it further because Kyle Browning, who actually made me on Hangout if I didn't screw it up, connecting everybody, who works for Acquia, who is, like I said, one of the early agencies, probably one of the leaders in terms of being first, because the guy who runs Acquia is the guy who invented Drupal. He created this SDK specifically for using iOS with a Drupal backend. Now, he did this originally with iOS 7, and he did that for Aqueous, so it really worked well with some of their distributions of Drupal, but it didn't generalize very well. So with Drupal 8, they deprecated what they did for Drupal Gardens, and I kind of took up the slack by building this app, which is nowhere near as sophisticated, not nearly as sophisticated as what Aqua did. But the idea here is that we wanted to show you the basic things you need to get started, and that's what this demo will be for. And so the app is on GitHub. Anybody can get to it. You could link to it now. It's a work in progress, just like we were here. We cleaned it up a bit for public viewing, but if you have anything to contribute, I would very much appreciate it, especially if you know about how to manage the master table in a split view controller. I'd love to talk to you after this meeting. So as I said, the iOS SDK of Kyle's creates sort of a tailor-made version of URL session, NSURL session, in order to be able to focus on Drupal sessions. Because a lot of this gets to be very context specific, and when you're dealing with a Drupal web server, there are abstractions that have been created on that side. It's not just a matter of logging in and logging out. You've got things you want to do. You want to create objects. For example, one of the things we'll show are articles with content. That's pretty straightforward. But you have other objects like images and files and so forth. And so his SDK did a very good job of letting you address these objects without having to write the whole context-specific session yourself. So it maps to a number of Drupal-specific objects such as entities, nodes, fields, and so forth. And so this is the eye chart. How many can actually read that? I want to know. Oh my God. Wow. Well, good. I tried to make it as large as I could, as colorful as I could, in order that you could kind of see it. But the idea is that you do, response requests. It's pretty straightforward, and you can provide. The key to this, I really think, is important. Is everything has authorization schema behind it, and so you can probably do it without authorizations. I think we actually tried that when we were having some problems with the 4 betas that we had to run against. But built into this is the ability to individualize content per user. So if you have a community, for example, maybe it's not Facebook, but maybe you'd like to have an experience like Facebook for a professional organization or a church or something, and you wanted to build an experience whereby the organization owned all their content and it was secure, and that if John was doing something, Dave couldn't get into it unless John wanted Dave to get into it. This provides all of the mechanisms to do that. And frankly, through our, Vivek and I's arduous months of going through 4 different betas and a release candidate, I can tell you many of the issues we struggle with is the refinement of the authentication protocols related to this. It's very easy to get locked out of something, let me tell you. And that's, I guess, by design. But the idea of having the iOS SDK and the app is to show you how you would properly navigate to get these things done. So here's a classic. An entity is, I guess, now the most common, considered the most common, the highest abstraction layer. It's a superclass, and you can get user information. You can get information on content, and more importantly, what you can do on the Drupal side is you can build these objects without coding, and then you can refer to them through the SDK to pull down not just the common things like what we'll show you as an image or just a plain file, or some type of written content. But you could do something very sophisticated. Drupal also has the ability to allow you to manage a remote file system. So if you had, for example, a huge photo library somewhere and you wanted Drupal to basically provide authentication and security and a level of indirection, those kind of services, it would allow you to do that. So what's the catch? Well, if you're an iOS developer, sometimes you just write it yourself and you know what you wrote, right? I think that's why a lot of people use things like App Engine to go. But if you realize that if you're building a lot of software that you're just going to create a legacy for yourself, which means it's like having kids that never grow up, you're going to have to like take care of them forever, then you might want to look at Drupal. But you have to understand how Drupal is architected, understand the schemas behind, what makes different types of objects. And this is not a corporate top-down designed system. There's a lot of organically grown kind of elements to Drupal, which means it sort of came out best of breed in one hand, but some of the things don't always seem to fit together perfectly. However, the one thing I can say about Drupal 8, and I think this is a real paradigm shift, is that unlike all the previous versions of Drupal, where the development community was very distributed and somewhat chaotic, but in a good way, in a constructive way. With Drupal 8, we have some very large organizations, some very big agencies, like the one who helped sponsor this, FFW or Acquia, that have a strong commercial vested interest in seeing this become very cohesive. And so Drupal 8 is the reflection of a lot of large organizations trying to make this work for them. They believe in this enough because they built businesses, they've hired thousands of people, and they've got huge clients, as you saw on the previous slide. They're going to make this work. And so there are going to be things about it that frankly aren't as maybe creative as they used to be, but they're going to be a lot more stable. And what you'll find are the distributions that are available on hosting sites such as GoDaddy will become, as a result, much more reliable. And in fact, the release candidate we've had some problems with because this is the first time the RESTful interface has been implemented in core. Before it was done in various other third-party modules. And so what we're seeing now, for example, is when they host this on GoDaddy or they host this on whatever platform they're using, either virtual hosting or dedicated, they have different underlying mechanisms like Nginx or Apache, and they're finding very subtle problems with that now in the release candidate, which means by the time it goes to production, it should be very stable, because if it's not, then these users are going to spend money. So I really believe that we're at a point now where it is going to be usable. I expect it to be production mode by the end of the year, and they'll have a 8.0.1 release or an 8.1 release 2 or 3 months later, because they really want to get this thing moving. There's a lot of work that's depending on this, and there are a lot of companies whose businesses depend on it. So now what I'd like to do is turn this over to Vivek, and he will actually give you a live demonstration of this.
Okay, shall I start?
Okay, Vivek, you ready?
Yes, yes. Okay.
Let me move you on. Okay, I'll shut my mic off, and it's all yours.
Okay, so I will begin by demonstration. Can you see the application? Hello. Can you see? Can you hear it now?
No.
Uh, Hello. Hello. Can you hear? Ha- Can you hear? Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear? Hello. Hello. I can't hear you back. Hello. Uh, Hello. Hello. Can you hear? Okay. Uh, I can't hear you actually. So I can't have your feedback. Okay, no problem. Okay, so let me share the screen again. And uh, yeah, okay. So this is our basic application, and this is our first screen that is used for verifying the user input for the website they are specifying. Uh, it is just basically trying to create an NSURL object from the user input, and if it has valid scheme and valid host name, then it will try to get data from the URL. That would be some HTML data, but we just don't use that data anymore, but we just want a success code 200. By that we can verify that okay, such site exists on internet and we are able to connect it despite of any proxies or anything middle boxes, and our internet is working fine. So it is just like verifying the Drupal website, and if it is correct, then it will say okay. And suppose I mess with the scheme, like some random scheme, then it will just give the error that this URL is not correct. It is like something is wrong. Okay, and if the correct URL is detected, then we are just storing it in NS user default as a preference, so that if application switched off and again user is starting that application, they will get their preference back. Okay, so we'll start with simple setup Drupal account, and we will see that one more user will be added to the Drupal, but that will be in the block state as per our website policy. So Uh, and here we have implemented enforces some rule for user punctuations are not allowed. Uh, and let's just have some meaningful username. Okay, and some dummy address for now. And a good password. It is also giving the help for that. I'm just typing some random things. And hit the add account. Okay, I have to just log in from the previous session. I have already logged in. Let us just try it again. User 123 some valid in some so it says that account has been created, and if we refresh this page, we can see here that the user has been created. It's in block state. Okay, so that is just the setup account. And as for the RESTful interfaces, it is actually making a post request on a particular resource for the Drupal. Details are mentioned in the code. Next is like a login. So for the login, we have actually implemented a small custom module that returns the role for that specific Drupal user if a proper username and credentials has been specified. So like I can log in with my account, and if like I have logged in, and if this login happens successfully, then we are just storing the username and password with the iOS session, and the session is a singleton object, so it will stick around the application until your application is not closed. So only one pair of credential will be maintained around the application, and all these screen are basically dependent with the login. So without login you cannot access the screen. So like uh, even like after setting the credential in the session object, we are also storing that with a keychain for the future access. And for that keychain we are actually using one open source keychain wrapper that is called SG keychain, and that code is also well documented. So when you go to the code you will understand it what a keychain wrapper does. So that's logged in happened. I got the my roles from the Drupal, that is an authenticated user, and as well as this is an administrative user. So next is like manage user account. According to the website policy, you may change the username. Uh, you can specify new password, and you have to specify your current password too. So let's try to change the password. And it basically changes the password within the app. So it will also changes the password with session objects, because you have to reflect the changes in your application as well if you got success for this request. As well as it also changes in the keychain wrapper. And if you see that try to access this on my web, it will say that your password has been changed and I'm not able to access with my previous password. Just let me log in again. Okay, and basically that screen is creating a patch request on user resources, and we are specifying the details along with the JSON request, and we are getting 204. That means, yeah, okay, content has been modified, and we are updating everything here. Okay, so that was the manage user account. Next is download file. So here we have a bunch of file uploaded on our website. uh, Let me just show you. Here are those files. So uh, these files are currently in public directory and I can download it. uh, for this table view to work, for backend we have just created a view. The view is a Drupal terminology that allows you to aggregate different kind of content. It can be the same kind of content, it can be a different kind of content, but views are really powerful. So we have created this JSON list of files, and I will just briefly explain you that how you can leverage the power of Drupal. So what I have created is that I want these many fields for each file type, and file type should not be an of image. So that is filter criteria, that I don't want image files. Uh, my authentication or access method will be on based on roles, and kind of roles I am giving is like authenticated user and administrators. Also, we have context filter. So what I'm going to do is like this is the really powerful tool of Drupal. Like I will specify user ID along with my path when I create the RESTful request, and that user ID should be a user who has uploaded the file. So this is the way you are like expressing the relationship with GUI itself. You don't have to code anything. And if you see that if I try it over here, it will give me the files who are uploaded by the user. Probably first user is Michelle. So I don't think he has uploaded any file yet, and I will be the third one probably, the fourth one. Yeah, for me it's fourth. So this is the JSON, and we have just simply displayed this JSON in a nice table form. And if you notice that we have download URI in the JSON, so by using that we are downloading the files. And once the file is downloaded, it will be stored on my simulator directory. You can see here it is the part, it is showing that files has been downloaded to some sandbox directory of my simulator. So that is just uh, it's combination of view and then downloading the files with AF networking library. So that is the GET request on the view. We are showing this just data, that file ID, file size, last date updated. Okay, so that is the download file. Similarly, we have upload file feature. So here, like, we have bunch of files set up in our Xcode project. So, and what this thing will do is it will actually make a post request on the file entity on our Drupal website, and it will specify some JSON, like what is the file name, what is the file type, and also it will specify the body of the file with the base64 encoded message. So if I hit the upload, it is going to create the base64 encode and it will upload the file. We can verify it by seeing the reports, and in the recent log messages we can see that one file is created. If I again upload the file, let's say file 2, okay, and when I refresh the log pages, uh, you can see that one more file has been created. Currently some work is going on with the patch request for the file, so currently we are not able to relate these files with some nodes, so we are not able to display these files to you, but it is getting uploaded to the server. Okay, similarly we have delete files. For that we have just like created some table view. It is actually leveraging the previous view that I showed you for the files, and if I try to delete this, I don't have enough permission to delete this file, so it is just giving me an error. Uh, so that is kind of security you can enforce on the views, and that is basically a delete request on a file for the specified file ID. Okay, so the next is download picture. For this, we have created a very similar view for the file, but instead of just filtering out the image files, we have filtered the files which are not the image. So if you can relate this is a very powerful feature of Drupal, that uh, we can directly duplicate the one views and just simply change the filter criteria to contain the image instead of does not contain the image, and we are like this ready, and we have only those files which are like images. And same things we are getting from the server, like the file name, last updated date, size, and whatever the file ID. And after that, if I tap on this, uh, I will be able to see the file. These files are in the private directory. This one is in public. So if you see that I have my image file over here. Okay, so that was the download picture. And similarly, we have upload picture. Here we have used example code from the Apple itself to access the photo library. And here I have some images on my simulator. If you say that like I want to upload this image to the server, I will hit the upload button. It gonna create same base64 encoded text, and if I see the reports, it will upload the image file to the server. If you see that here, created one more file with ID 20102. If I upload it again, it will create the same post request for the file. And if I refresh this, there is one more file with 103 ID. Okay, so next, these are related to the files. Next thing is related to the articles. Article is a specific kind of content type for the Drupal. That is simply we can relate with the blog or some advertisement on the website. So similar to the file, we have created one more view that will just give some gist of the articles, and uh, uh, it will just throw some details like what is the title of that article, when it was last updated, what is the node ID of that article, and if there is an alias for that article or not. Okay, so we have a bunch of article on our website if you want to see, and like here we have articles, and if I like tap on the article name, it will download the whole node by making a get request on the node ID with specific permissions I have granted for that. And if you see that the same blog post is over here, and here are some comments. That comments are also visible to me, so I can load the comment. For this comment also we have created a view that will only aggregate the comment data type and for the specific node ID. If you want to see that, our view is like uh, here's our comment view. So here as a contextual filter, I am passing the node ID, and the relationship is like the node ID itself should be the node to which the comment has been posted, and some details about comment like title, author, comment ID. This comment means comment body actually. A type of the comment. Drupal has several type of comment, and you may also add new types of comment. Depth, that is the level of comment, like how much indentation is there, like reply to reply, or reply, or it is a flash comment, something like that. And even I have added the sort criteria based on the post date, and that whatever comment is posted latest, that will be on the top. So here are some comments that were on our article about Swift. And similarly, we can actually make a post request on the comment entity and add a comment to that specific node. So we can here like specify some comment title, and here we have implemented some keyboard accessories to help you write down the HTML markup. So like hello world, and there is switch. It will switch the editor. You can see that this is the text, and if I add some little more markup, you should be able to identify that this is the content that will be shipped in a JSON to the request, and it will actually make a comment on the article. Okay, the comment has been posted. See that it appears over here and also in our article. So here is my article, and yes, here is my latest comment on the 20th October. Hello world, we are happy to demo this. So that is pretty much of it. But I would like to mention something about related to my experience with Drupal, that most of the time your application logic can be mapped to the Drupal's core, like entities and views and nodes, etc. And even if you are not able to map the whole logic to the Drupal, but you have like some things are mapping and something are not, then you may go for the custom modules. Drupal actually uses Symfony 2 as its framework for dependency injections and database management and everything. So you can write down your own custom modules, and it's very simple process. It's latest framework, and even if you don't want to start from the scratch, you may search for the custom modules on the Drupal website, and most of the time you will get similar modules for your purpose. Like if you have 70% similarity, you take that code, open source code, you hack that code according to your needs, and you can get started with some complex example too. Like suppose we nowadays we have mobile phone games like Temple Run. So they specify daily challenges. So for that, they can use Drupal backend, specifying the level and difficulty and kind of obstacles. That will be a parameter, and that JSON will be received when a user is on internet. And based on the JSON, their graphic and the gameplay will be changed. That sort of use case you can think about. And so that is pretty much it from my side. Okay. I'm open for the question, or let's say what is Michelle is saying. Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me correct? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, you can. Good. Good. So I will, because of the audio issues, I'll relay the questions to him. But my hearing isn't nearly as good as the mic. Any questions? Well, he needs the mic actually to answer them. So if you tell me, then I'll walk over and tell him, and then tell you. I know it's technology. Anybody got a any questions? Yes. Maybe I'll answer that. Vivek?
Yes.
A question about how the Drupal output through the JSON is being rendered. And I guess that's a multifaceted question. It really depends on the entity. But, and correct me if I'm wrong, some of the content you see on the screen, it's very generic, is strictly iOS native, and it's pulling elements such as files or images or text, and it puts it into its own formatting. But what Vivek did was he took some of the article content and he pulled the HTML right with it, and so you get enough of the formatting as you would a PDF or a Word document, and that was a convenience that we did. It's very expedient of him. In fact, what I'd like to do before we get any further, I'd like to commend him on what he did, because, and I think some of you might recognize it, but you don't know the circumstances behind it. We went through 4 betas of Drupal, and we also went through the release candidate, which we just implemented, and you're seeing here. We did that last week on Thursday, and each version solved a problem and created one. And we did this while we used localhost for some development. All the testing was on live sites, either GoDaddy or Pantheon. And so they have very different ways of hosting these things. They use different web servers. GoDaddy uses, for what we're doing, Apache, and Pantheon was using Nginx. And as you know, when an application sits on an operating system, it inherits a lot of the permissions and the file securities. And that's a lot of what we're wound up testing. But Vivek did all of this,
Yes.
in spite of the fact that he just started his graduate degree in August, and that's when he started this. And so he has been doing it all. He handled so many issues on the Drupal side And he did it with people all over the world trying to solve problems with authentication and file handling and return codes. I was just so impressed by his ability to do both the iOS side and handle Kyle's SDK. In fact, the way he got involved with this is he actually did Google Summer of Code and wrote something like what Kyle did for Google Summer of Code. But he agreed to use Kyle's libraries because I asked him to do that because they're getting supported. Acquia is supporting them. And he picked right up on it. And right about the same week, I think he went to start his school, which is like, I guess, 500 kilometers or more north of where he lives. So he's new place and everything else. So he did a phenomenal job of this. And if you're interested in learning more, I'm sure we can put you in touch with him and he can tell you all the nuanced things that he had to do to make this work. So I wanted to give him a hearty round of applause for this. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the next question.
I have 1,000 articles. I don't want them all coming down at the same time.
Right.
So, give me first and everything.
Oh, yes. Vivek, and this is a good question because we deal with larger objects than that, like an image, and I'll get into that in a little bit. So Vivek, did we do anything in the anything in the app that could handle a large download, like a million articles or something?
Actually, there is a pagination support built into the views, but currently RESTful interface is not implemented for that. But like if you have 1,000 articles in your JSON list, so what the plan is there, you can download 10 in the bunch of 10 articles, and when you like scroll the list again, it will download the next 10, and that will be fully RESTful. Like you will get the link for the next 10 articles with your previous JSON. So in the app, you can utilize that link and request for 10 more articles. And this way, like we can handle thousands of records. That is the actually plan they are being implemented. Is that satisfied your question?
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so before we end it, I have one more thing to show. So how easily do you incorporate this into your own application? So, so if you wanted to do this yourself, how long would it take?
That app you mean?
Yeah, if you wanted to, if you had an app and you wanted to incorporate it, how long do you think it'd take to do? Can't hear you. Oh, thank you. This app, one of the reasons I did this, just to give you some background, I had an app that I submitted to the App Store years ago, and the idea was that it had two kinds of content, picture and audio, and I wanted people to be able to look at the picture and hear what went on in the pictures. The app was pretty straightforward, but putting it on a website to have people actually look at the picture and hear the audio. I originally tried to do that with Facebook, and I did it just before they got called by ASCAP. This was like back in 2007 or 8, and said, ASCAP said, if you put any audio on Facebook, we'll sue you. And they were small enough back then that they just said, okay. So what this app does, for example, this app allows you to create a video. Oops, it allows you to create a video while you're taking, a picture. So you find, this is the context which you took it in, and then you want maybe to zoom in on something, you take a picture of it. And the idea is that now you've got a video and you've got an image. Now, where are you going to post that and get anybody to display it? Probably nowhere. Why are you creating find, this is the context that you're talking about. You want maybe to zoom in on something. Yeah. So you get a full resolution image, and you get a small video audio clip that tells you why you do it. Now that seems pretty basic, I guess. But you can't post this on Facebook. Now, the tricks of this, by the way, is that both the image and the video are in the same file. Okay, so you just have one object to move around. So you think that'd be pretty simple. But if you post this on Facebook or anywhere else, you lose all that, simply because they basically take the image and transcode it into whatever they want. So all the metadata included. So what you can do now with this is you can hit this upload button, and it goes to the Drupal site. I'd like to show you the Drupal site, but that's the problem. We've been having authentication and a lot of other issues. But the point is now I can upload that file to the Drupal site, and I can post it myself. So I can create this very unique user experience on the server that if I tried to do it through a more common means like Google Plus or Facebook, Instagram, or the other two. So it took me, and I'm quite serious about this, I started integrating his code because his code was still a work in progress on that Drupal side. Okay, so the code went in, and the code works. The app works. The server's got some issues, of course, as it relates to handling an 8 megabyte file. But the point is that it's easy to work with this. If I can do it, I can play it on iOS as well. It's faster. So, but a lot of it has to do with the fact that we wrote an app that is really easy to understand. And we're hoping that all of you will take a look at it and tell us how to make it easier. And once again, you know where it is on GitHub. URL's been posted. If you like to contribute, I'd be glad to add you to the project. All right, Vivek, thank you again. And
Yes.
thank you everyone here. That's it.
Can you put this on the projector again?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And use your web browser?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
You can hear it, I guess.
Yeah. Hang on. Try and make this quick. I will make this quick. So we have a conference coming up. Oh, yeah. Your microphone.
Hi. Who's writing an Apple TV app, by the way? Hold up higher. Let me see. 1, 2, 3. What are they? Games? What are you doing, Mike? Maybe a game? Okay, so you guys know we're having a meetup in November on Apple TV at Coursera. So it's going to be on a Tuesday night. It's a bonus. The month was already full, but wanted to talk about Apple TV, so we're going to do that. Also, what happened to the screen? First Tuesday. We didn't check.
There we go.
Don't miss Manjula's meetup, too. So this is coming at the end of that week. It's the end of the first week in November. And who's been to CocoCon? Anybody? It's 2 days. It's very educational. There's usually 3 tracks running at the same time. They've given us a 20% discount code that I'll post after this. I've already emailed it out. And I've got a pass to give away. And Michael?
You expect me to read this? Okay, you should do that.
All right, 1815070. 70? Oh, all right, great. Okay, so we'll get you connected with them and you'll be the co-op. So was that it? Was there somebody that wanted to announce jobs or did they already go? Looks like they've already gone.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Yes, okay, Chris.
Okay, good. So hi everybody, Chris Carfield, Senior Manager here at GoDaddy. First off, thank you everybody for coming and joining us in our space tonight. We're very happy, pleased, and honored to host everyone. A couple or three just quick announcements. One, if anyone here is either a freelancer or has a small agency who is developing Drupal or other apps on behalf of clients, I want to make sure that everybody was aware of the GoDaddy Pro program that was released earlier this year, which is actually a dashboard to manage all of those different apps. So check that out. Second is we actually just entered beta with our cloud service product. So if you do want to spin up a development server, production server, being able to spin one up in less than a minute and be able to create and destroy those servers regardless of what Linux distro you're putting on it or OS or architecture and environment, you can do that as well. And then third, as we're just talking about, we are always looking for great talent here in Sunnyvale. So if you do come to our corporate site and click on careers, you'll be able to find anything there. Do you have any questions about GoDaddy or want to know? Talk to myself or Brendan from our team who's here as well. And again, just thank you all for coming tonight and looking forward to seeing you all again soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Well, is that just
Finished?
I think so. We were just to announce our next meetup. I guess Chingas didn't make it. We were having, he's in Moscow. Next month, we're planning to show how you can package Drupal into a Docker container and move it anywhere. Chingas has a company that he's started about a year ago that allows you to do that. So if you're interested in using Drupal, you like the idea of putting this something around there. He's going to be giving a presentation. That's it. Thank you all for coming.